So, one man in Congress who will not be distracted by Trump's taxes or by the wiretapping allegations. He's got Russia on his mind. It's the man on your screen, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. He is a member of the Judiciary and Armed Services Committees. You will get FaceTime with Jim Comey, the director of the FBI, today. You have criticized that the FBI has not been forthcoming enough to your liking. How so?
Okay, number one, Director Comey will not appear before the Judiciary Committee. He's not a witness. We have 4 people who are going to talk about what Russia does all over the world to interfere with democracies, the tools in their toolbox. We wrote a letter, Senator Whitehouse and myself, the Democrat, I'm the Republican, wanting to know if there's any evidence of a warrant ever being issued against the Trump campaign. He hasn't answered that letter. He hasn't confirmed if there's a criminal investigation of the Trump campaign. He needs to answer the letter and give the nation some information about what's going on here.
3 things. One, I thought he was coming today before the Judiciary Committee to say whether or not he's investigating ties between Russia and the Trump administration. That's not true?
No, there's some misunderstanding here. 2 weeks ago, we met with Director Comey, Senator Whitehouse, and myself, and I told him by the 15th of March I'd like to know if there's a criminal investigation because I'm about to launch a congressional investigation of Russia. I don't want to interfere with your investigation. I think it's very important that Congress know whether or not there's a criminal investigation so that what we're doing doesn't interfere with what Comey may be doing. And if there's not a criminal investigation of the Trump ties to Russia, then I think the country needs to know it, Congress needs to know it, and he has never promised to answer that question. But Chairman Grassley said something very important yesterday, that he'd be willing to block the Deputy Attorney General's nomination until Director Comey gave us the information we have sought regarding warrants and investigations.
So he could so nothing could happen today in terms of the FBI. He may decide not to come forward. You're saying he's not on the plan, and he hasn't answered your letter.
Right. So what we would do next is subpoena the information. I like Director Comey. He's in a bad spot here. You got the current president accusing the former president of basically having his campaign surveilled. The way you would do that is get a warrant either through the FISA court or a criminal court. I want to get to the bottom of it. The FBI would know if there's a warrant was ever issued. They would know if a warrant was applied for. I want to answer that question. And if they do not provide the answer to that letter that we wrote in a bipartisan fashion, there will be a bipartisan subpoena following the FBI.
So you're saying, hold on a second, so you gave the FBI until the Ides of March 15th, right? I don't know if that was intentional, but that was a dramatic play. And if he does not come before the committee today, if he does not respond to the letter, you're going to subpoena the FBI?
So I never asked him to appear in person today. I like Comey. I think he's a good man. I want to know, don't you want to know if there's a criminal investigation of the Trump campaign?
Yeah.
Don't you want to know if there's a warrant issued?
Yeah, we keep asking also,
things.
But I'm saying, you will subpoena the FBI. Is that what you're saying?
I will subpoena the information requested in the letter with the support of my chairman, Senator Grassley, who's been terrific. The ranking Democrat is Senator Feinstein. They have helped Senator Whitehouse and myself write the letter, and we're going to follow up. Congress is going to flex its muscles. The President of the United States asked Congress to look into this as to whether or not the Trump campaign was surveilled during the 2016 election by the federal government. I'm going to get to the bottom of it, and if it needs a subpoena to get there, that's what we'll do.
So the subpoena would be for the wiretapping, not for information about any evidence linking Russian interference to anybody in the Trump orbit.
Okay. You got it. We want to know if a warrant was ever issued, the information provided to the judge or judges in question. What did you give them? Did they give you a warrant? I want to know that. That's the letter, which would be backed up by a subpoena. The general question is there an active criminal investigation of the Trump campaign regarding their ties to Russia? No one's ever told me there is. As a matter of fact, Director of National Intelligence Clapper said a couple of weeks ago on his watch there was no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. So I want to know, you know, that this has been raised by the current president. I think Congress should look into all things Russia, but if there's a criminal investigation, Chris, I don't want to get in the middle of that because that should be protected.
So that's why you're not going to include it in the subpoena. But you've also
Right.
implied that you don't think there's anything to the wiretapping
Right.
allegation. You think the president put it out as a distraction. You've been one of the proponents of this simple logic, which is if he cares so much, he should pick up the phone, because Jim Comey's not going to duck him the way he's ducking you. That's his boss. And he could know the answer right away and declassify any information. Is that true?
Well, no. Well, number one, I don't know if the president could pick up the phone and ask questions about an investigation of his campaign. The bottom line is people have asked the president to deliver any information you have, the Trump people, about what may have occurred. They've given us nothing. I've seen no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. I've seen no evidence of a wiretap being requested by the Department of Justice, a warrant. But the longer it takes to answer my letter, the more concerned and suspicious I'm beginning to be.
Right, but look, I think the law is fairly clear that the president could. Whether he should is certainly an ethical consideration. You could talk about that all day. But
it might be legal, too, actually, so I don't know.
Well, look, the flip side of it is this. People will say, you guys keep talking about these Russian connections and contacts, and there's nothing there. Clapper came out and said there's no proof of collusion. Comey has not jumped at the chance to tell you what he's doing with any Russian investigation. This is all about political hate directed towards the president.
Well, I don't have political hate directed toward the president. I've talked to him twice in the last week, had great conversations about health care and national security. But the president raised this issue a week or so ago, saying he believed his campaign was wiretapped by the former president. There would be a way to find that out. Once you raise it, you got to answer the question, is there a warrant? Was a warrant ever issued by any judge anywhere in America to allow the Trump campaign to be wiretapped? I'm going to find the answer to that. If there is a criminal investigation ongoing regarding the Trump campaign and their ties to Russia, I want to know. I'm going to pursue all things Russia, because here's what I do know. The Russians tried to interfere with our election. I don't think they changed the outcome. It wasn't a 400-pound guy sitting on his bed who hacked into the DNC. It was Russians' intelligence services. They took that information, they gave it to WikiLeaks, and they tried to basically embarrass Secretary Clinton. And if we don't stop Russia, it could be Iran and China tomorrow. It could be Republicans on the receiving end of this.
But those are separate considerations, right? Why they did and how they did what they did as Russia, that's something that everybody believes deserves inspection. Whether or not Trump had something to do with it is a separate inquiry.
Absolutely.
And to this point, there hasn't been any proof of that.
You're right. I have seen no evidence. I have requested whether or not any evidence exists. To get a warrant, Chris, to follow the Trump campaign, there's two ways you could do it. The Foreign Intelligence Service Act would allow you to follow campaign operatives if you believe they're interacting with foreign agents.
Right.
The second way is a criminal warrant to follow the Trump campaign if you believe they're taking services from a foreign government in violation of our campaign laws. I want to know, were either one of those warrants ever issued? I don't believe they were, but the longer it takes to answer that question, the more suspicious I get.
Man, you know, Senator, let's get at the real question that's behind all of this, okay? You either believe what's coming out of this White House or you don't. I mean, that's something that you guys are having to deal with. And I know there's a lot of spin. I know what politics is. I grew up in it. But this is different. Do you believe what's coming out of this White House on a daily basis? Or do you feel that you have to check everything these days?
Well, I believe that the statement made by President Trump that he believes the Obama administration surveilled his campaign is something very, very serious. And he challenged the Congress to get the bottom of it, and I will. You can't leave that hanging. In terms of the president's efforts to reform health care, I've been impressed by how much time he spent as a person to try to get a better bill. Republicans have an opportunity to do this by ourselves. We also have an opportunity to screw it up by ourselves. Right now, the House bill, in my view, will have a hard time getting through the Senate. Rand Paul says he can't vote for refundable tax credits in the House bill because that's an entitlement in another name. Medicaid in the House bill allows open enrollment for another 1.5 to 2 years, and that's a problem for me. Well, so the president he's working hard to find a bill that will replace Obamacare. My advice to the president, if you can't find a better plan coming from Republicans, Don't buy it just because the Republicans want to sell it to you. Let Obamacare collapse, and it will, then try to replace it in a bipartisan fashion. That's what I would recommend he do.
I want to hear from you before we let you go,
okay,
about why you think that Obamacare is going to collapse. But I want to go back to one question that I didn't get an answer from you on. I said, do you believe what's coming out of this White House on a regular basis? Because on the wiretapping allegation, I get that because the president raised it and put it on you, you have an opportunity to dig into it. But I'm asking you, just like with wiretapping, which you don't seem to buy, do you feel that that has become part of the normal now, which is they say things that aren't necessarily true, which you have to check up on?
Well, I think, you know, every president says things. Sometimes it doesn't work out. This was at another level. I've never heard this before by any sitting president.
He accused the president of a felony. He called him a bad or sick man. He then seemed to base it on fringe reporting.
Right. I want to make sure that the accusation that the former president was involved in surveilling the current president is put to bed forever. As to this president, I had a good conversation about how to rebuild the military. We're talking closely about health care, how you could put an infrastructure bill together. I want to work with President Trump. It's not a credibility problem other than this one issue, to me, has to be solved.
All right, and we'll leave the deeper discussion about health care until another day when we understand the politics a little bit better from where we are right now. You guys are still dealing with that CBO score. But we know that Russia's a priority. We will continue to cover it. We will not be distracted. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much.